We are here at Michael's on the Hill. I'm Chef Michael Kloeti, and today we're going to focus on beautiful local lamb, right from Vermont, right from down the street. This one is from Settlement Farm in Underhill, Vermont. So just like in life, when you're afraid of something, it will hinder you from doing it. So don't be afraid of having a nice piece of meat, even if the size of a shoulder, the size of a leg. Don't be scared. So what we're going to do is, this is a shoulder that usually comes in already a netting. It's kind of nice, because what this wants to be done is treated very softly, very gently for a very long time. So no matter if you learned how to do a pork shoulder, this works just the same. This one is just beautiful local lamb. So what we're going to do is, we need to make smaller pieces, but again, big chunks, what I'm trying to get out of this one. So you open this up, you just take the netting off, you get rid of the netting, and it opens up. If you ever get into deboning and learning how to debone, or into the butchering, that's a very interesting way to do it, especially a shoulder. It's quite interesting what the anatomy of an animal can be. But here what we're going to do is we just open this up. So it's really not scary. You have a nice piece of meat, put it around. Always remember, have a very sharp knife. Very sharp knives will make it much easier for you to do any cutting. So with this, I'm imagining, always imagine what the goal is going to be. I need big chunks. I need about 3-inch to 3-inch pieces. Because remember, when we stew this, it's going to shrink down. So what I want to do is just cut nice, big strips, just about 2.5, 3 inches wide, and cut it right down in the middle. So all we're going to do is, as I said, have a nice sharp knife, cut those big chunks. Here's what you want. You want to have these nice big pieces. They look huge right now. But when you stew them and they shrink over half away, they'll be much smaller. But you can see this beautiful meat. And then with this stew, just like with a lot of different stews, the ingredients are there's not so many ingredients. We have the nice meat, we have some carrots, we got onions, we got some celery root, we have an herb bundle that you can or cannot do. You have dry herbs, you can use dry herbs, but of course you've got fresh herbs that you can grow yourself in a window box outside your window when the time comes. Lots of garlic. I love garlic. But what I do is I leave it whole. And the reason I leave it whole is, one, it does flavor the stew, but it doesn't give so much garlic flavor in the first time. But what it does is it creates these morsels later on in your stew that are just like candy. And when you bite into them, they're not so spicy anymore. They're just very sweet by then. So I use a whole lot of garlic. We use a little bay leaf, red wine. You have some lamb stock. I'll use lamb stock, use beef broth, whatever you have. Because when you debone a lamb, you're going to have a lot of bones. We make lamb stock out of it. So this is all you need, are the ingredients is right here. With our lamb stew, we're going to make what's called a Gremolata. And a Gremolata you can do, I love to do it with ramp leaves, but right now ramps are not out quite yet, so we're using parsley for it, what gives a really nice fresh flavor to it. But again, simple as it gets, we're using some fresh parsley. Don't worry too much about the small stems, they're nice and tender. So we just put a little parsley in here. We're putting some garlic. Here, the garlic will have an impact on how hot it's going to get. So let's take 2 cloves of garlic. We'll take a little bit of anchovy, not too much. You do not want it to be fishy. The reason to do this is it adds so much flavor to it. It does not supposed to taste like a Caesar dressing either, but the fish flavor of it will help the lamb flavor to come out even more. So it puts in your taste buds, and this is all about your taste buds, what we're doing right now. The Gremolata will do that. You will wake up your taste buds. We need some lemon, and what we're going to do is I use some lemon zest. Get yourself one of these microplaners. They're great because you don't want to get the white of it because that will make it bitter. Just use a little bit of lemon zest. You're going to use a little bit of lemon juice. Just make sure no seeds go in there. Seeds will make it bitter, very bitter. And you also don't want to have that kind of crunch in there. Olive oil. A little bit of salt and pepper. Season it. Always season it lightly first. You can fix it later on. And these are all the ingredients that it's in it. The parsley, the olive oil, garlic, a little anchovies, salt, pepper, a little bit of lemon. That's it. And what this machine does is it muddles everything together. By the way, if you have a mortar, you can do it with that too. Works just as fine. But what you have is now the parsley, the olive oil, the garlic, everything is in there. And let it sit for a while because it will keep giving more flavor to the Gremolata. But this is basically it. So with our lamb, and of course, this whole thing follows through. If you go on a mission to find local ingredients, you'll find them. They're right from down the street. So same thing here. We're looking at here, this is 99% local. We got local milk, we got vegetable stock that's made out of local vegetables. We have onions, garlic, local butter, of course. We got nitty-gritty polenta, mixed herbs too. Right now, we're still in the spring, so herbs are not quite available yet. But we're gonna start with sweating onions and the garlic. Sweating would mean that you're gonna start making translucent. We use some butter. Now, if you're lactose intolerant, that could happen. You start with olive oil. You don't use milk, you use all just vegetable stock. But we use a little bit of butter. We're gonna use our onions, our garlic. And now what you do is, right now with sweating this, you start breaking down the heat of an onion and a garlic, and it turns into sweet. It loses that sharp taste and becomes just absolutely beautiful to flavor our polenta. So see, now it starts sweating. And it starts to cook, it starts to break down. What you don't want is color. If you do looking for some color, you will turn the polenta a little bit brown, what is not a bad color either for the polenta. But this is about it right here. Then we're adding our milk. And we're adding our vegetable stock. And now what you want to do is you need to wait until it comes up to a boil. And while it's boiling, what you're going to do is you're going to rein in the cornmeal. Nice and slow, but just keep stirring. If you dump it in all in once, you're going to have some lumps in there. Well, then you're going to have a little bit of lumps in there, but that's all right too, I guess. But just let it rain piece by piece. Let it rain, whip it in, whisk it in. And as you can see, it looks pretty loose right now, but this will thicken up. And now you can see how now it bubbles away. One, be really careful. This is really, really hot. Keep stirring it. It will take about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then when you put it aside, it will keep on cooking. So I would suggest to let it simmer for at least 20 minutes. But it will, when you have it hot, it will not cool down that quickly. And then you have to reheat it back up. But just like grits, this will take quite a while for the liquid to soak in. But as you can see, it gets now thicker and thicker and thicker. And if you have to thin it down, just add a little bit more vegetable stock or add a little bit more milk. And that's it. That's as far as we bring this polenta. So what we want to do is we want to start with the beautiful lamb that we got here. And we're going to season it. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. Again, don't go too crazy in the beginning. We'll season the stew. I'm always teaching people, season it 3 times. 1, when you make it. 2, when you're ready to serve it. But then just before the guest gets it, before you put it on a plate, season it yet 1 more time. We're just going to toss this up a little bit. We got pans really, really hot. Nice and roasting. You want the pan really hot. Use a little bit of oil, doesn't need too much. And while it's starting to smoke right away, put in your pieces of lamb. You do not want to overcrowd the pan, especially depending on how strong your flames are. If you overcrowd it, it will not brown it. Place your pieces of lamb. Turn them around, like it a little bit darker. You don't want to go too dark on it. If you sear it too strongly, it will dry out the meat, but you are cooking the protein of whatever that is, chicken, pork, lamb, whatever that is. You want to give it a nice sear so you get that roast flavor on there, but you definitely don't want to get it too dark, where then all it does, it tastes burned and it becomes chewy. And if you could just smell this right now. Now, when we get it to this point, we can start adding our vegetables. And some onions. Add your carrots, and as you can see, they're nice, beautiful, local, organic carrots. I didn't even peel them. I just washed them, I cut them up. All the nutrition is right under the peel, so just leave it on. You don't have to. You don't have to waste any of it. Use the whole thing. And use some celery root. Here again, you can use a vegetable. The recipe says celery root. Fine, use celery root. You got turnips, you got parsnips, you have rutabaga, you have any kind of root vegetable. Add it to it. It just adds more flavor. You want to give this a little bit of a roast as well. We'll lose a little bit of some here. Here we go. Now when you have a little bit of color on it, what you need is, because I want to transport it from the roasting pans into my, either a beautiful nice pot like that, or you can put it actually in your crock pot for that matter. But what I need is I need to get all the flavors out of these pans as well. So I'm just going to deglaze it. It's called deglazing with some red wine. And what it does is it gets the flavor on it from the red wine. But it gets everything, all these little things on the bottom, these little specks on the bottom of the pan, and gets it onto the stew. Because what you're always looking for as a chef and as a cook, no matter what, is get more flavor. How am I going to get more flavor and more flavor? Hence our stock too. Stocks are very, very important. You make them out of vegetables, fish bones, beef bones, anything you need to make with this. And with this, of course, we use lamb stock or a beef stock. And we put it into our pot. Get everything out of there. Don't waste a bit. But the bottom of the pan should look nice and clean actually again. So you have everything is out. Same thing here again. Everything goes right in the pot. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of flavoring. Take this and put that on the heat. Add some more flavoring, the herb bundle, thyme, rosemary, which you can get your hands on. And then you add your stock to it. It doesn't need to be fully covered. What happens is the moment this starts simmering, the meat will start shrinking, so does the vegetable. And with this, if you have this in your crock pot, turn it on nice and low and let this go for 2, 3, 4 hours. If you have it on the stove and you do have it on the really like on a slow simmer, it'll definitely take about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And here we go. And now you leave it alone. You turn it down and you let it rest and you give it plenty and plenty of time. And after about 2 hours of nice and slow simmer, we have this just simmering away. All the flavors are now combined. They're all mingling with each other. You got the carrots, the onions are almost melted away. And all you have this beautiful lamb that is now just falling apart. It just wants to be in your mouth and just absolutely delicious. And from that, we're going to take a portion out of this. And we're going to reduce the stock. It's just a fancy word of let the water evaporate. Put it on. We have our polenta right here. We're turning that on as well, just to reheat it. The polenta, I want to finish with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, or as I said, is here. I went with Parmesan. It was just handy at that point. And all you do is we fold in the Parmesan and the mixed herbs. And of course, all the time, make sure you season it. As you can see, all it is just the water evaporated out, becomes a sauce that is now, the French calls nappé. Well, it just means it coats the meat. And now these are all the flavors that you wanted to have together. Here we go. We have our polenta. Beautifully done. Nice and creamy. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're going to plate it. So we're going to take our creamy polenta that I want to put down first. Plating, let your creativity go crazy. We're just going to put the polenta down on the bottom in this, the way I like it. But then you can put the stew down first, followed then with the polenta. That is fine, it's just as well. Now we're going with the stew, the lamb stew. Make sure nice mixture of vegetables and lamb. Right here. And I wish You could smell this right now, because all it does smell right now is this beautiful, the red wine, the lamb. You take a little bit of our Gremolata, you sprinkle that on top. That's up to your taste, how much you like. So what I like to do too, put the red some on a table, people can serve themselves. You can put it on a liner, you don't have to, but we're calling it fancy here. Give it on the side, and you got yourself this beautiful local lamb Navarin with creamy nitty-gritty polenta, Gremolata, and again, 99% local.